This is Meet Sean, where we break down real life topics insurance, annuities, real estate, travel planning, and home ownership so you can make smarter moves. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
So picture this. You just dropped like $1,000 on a new GPU.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. You've got the case all lit up, your cooling loop is absolutely pristine, and you boot up for a high-stakes competitive match.
The hype is real.
Exactly. You are seconds away from clutching the win. You snap your mouse to take the final shot, and bam, the frame rate just drops to single digits.
Brutal. Literally the worst feeling.
Or, worse yet, you're broadcasting this to your community, and your stream suddenly looks like a heavily compressed slideshow. It's maddening.
It really is.
You throw your hands up and think, do I just need to scrap this entire rig and start over?
Which is the immediate reflex,
Sure.
right? Panic buying.
Exactly. But before you start panic buying a whole new system, the most important component holding you back might actually be like the $80 metal box sitting at the bottom of your case that you completely ignored when building it.
Yeah. It's the classic builder's trap.
Yeah.
I mean, we get so hyper-focused on the flashy specs, the core counts, the clock speeds, the
How
V-rate.
says that goes on the box.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And we completely neglect the foundation that allows those components to actually do their jobs. The hardware ecosystem is just incredibly interconnected.
Yeah.
And a bottleneck in one unexpected place, well, it cascades through the whole system, especially when you introduce the massive processing weight of live streaming.
Which is exactly what we are tearing into today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are pulling from two really comprehensive guides published by cookingtopublish.com today.
Really good stuff of these.
Yeah, they're super detailed. One is focused purely on the gritty reality of gaming PC maintenance, and the other details the architecture of a professional level stream.
Right.
So our mission today is to map out the hardware upgrades that actually matter for performance and longevity, how to tune your system, and how that silicon acts as the unseen engine behind a flawless broadcast.
It's all connected.
It is. But let's hold off on spending anyone's money just yet. The sources make a pretty compelling case that a lot of people are artificially suffocating the hardware they already own.
Oh, they absolutely are. And it usually starts with the physical environment, specifically, dust and thermal dynamics.
Just basic dust.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to view dust as just an aesthetic nuisance, right? Like something that makes the acrylic side panel look dirty.
Right, you wipe it off before friends come over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on a microscopic level, dust is a highly effective thermal insulator. It builds up on the leading edges of your fan blades, altering their aerodynamics, and it disrupts the laminar flow of cool air into the case.
It's basically choking the system.
Literally. And more importantly, when it coats the fins of your heat sinks, it traps the heat generated by your processor.
Because silicon has a strict thermal limit, right? Like
Yeah.
if the heat can't dissipate into the air, it just bakes the component.
Precisely. And modern CPUs and GPUs are remarkably self-aware.
How do you mean?
Well, they have integrated thermal sensors. And when they detect that temperatures are approaching a critical threshold, usually around 90 to 100 degrees Celsius, they initiate a survival mechanism.
Thermal throttling.
Exactly. Thermal throttling. To prevent electromigration, which is the literal physical degradation of the chip's internal circuitry, the hardware intentionally downclocks itself.
Wow.
Yeah, it starves itself of voltage just to lower the temperature.
So that massive stutter you get right in the middle of a firefight, it might not actually be a lack of processing power. It's your processor deliberately putting the brakes on so it doesn't melt.
Spot on. You paid for a 5 gigahertz boost clock,
Mm-hmm.
but your chip is forcing itself to run at 2 gigahertz just to survive the dust jacket it's wearing.
That is wild. I mean, it's like driving a sports car, but you never change the oil or check the tire pressure, and then you wonder why it's sluggish.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah.
So, okay, hitting the rig with compressed air is step one, but how do you verify if thermals are actually the root of the stuttering? You can't exactly gauge the ambient temperature of a GPU die by, like, holding your hand near the exhaust fan.
No, definitely not. You need telemetry.
Okay.
The guides specifically point to diagnostic software like HW Monitor, Core Temp, and MSI Afterburner.
Are those hard to use?
Not at all. They hook directly into those motherboard sensors we just talked about. You just leave them running on a second monitor or log the data while you game.
Okay.
And if you see your GPU temperature spike into the high 80s at the exact millisecond your game stutters, well, you have a definitive answer.
Got it. But the physical environment is really only half of the maintenance equation here, right?
Right.
The other invisible bottleneck is outdated software. Operating systems, game clients, and specifically graphics drivers. And I know, look, people hate the constant update notification.
Oh, everybody hits remind me tomorrow.
Exactly. But ignoring a driver update isn't just missing out on, like, a new menu feature.
No, not at all. A driver is essentially a highly specialized API translator.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Sure. You have this incredibly complex game engine trying to send rendering instructions with the physical architecture of your GPU. When NVIDIA or AMD push a driver update, they aren't just doing routine maintenance.
What?
They have literally gone into the code of a newly released game, identified inefficiencies in how the game engine is talking to their specific hardware, and completely rewritten the translation layer.
So it's like two people trying to negotiate a contract, but they speak different dialects.
Yes.
The hardware and the game engine are just fumbling the translation, which causes crashes or poor performance. So the driver update is the new, perfectly fluent translator that allows them to communicate instantly.
That's a great way to conceptualize it. The new driver streamlines the instruction set, and that reduces the CPU overhead required to feed frames to the GPU.
Okay, let's pivot though.
Sure.
Let's say someone runs a telemetry, they blow out the case, their thermals are sitting at a really cool 65 degrees under load, and their drivers are completely up to date.
A perfect scenario.
Great. But they are still getting bottlenecked. The frame pacing is just all over the place. I assume that's when we cross into physical hardware upgrades.
Yeah, that is the point of diminishing returns for maintenance. You are now hitting the hard computational ceiling of your silicon.
So the sources go through the usual suspects for the CPU, GPU, high-speed RAM, fast NVMe storage drives.
Sticking to reputable brands, of course.
Naturally.
Yeah.
We all know a better graphics card pushes more pixels. But I want to zero in on something you mentioned at the very beginning.
Okay.
And something the guides heavily emphasize, which is the power supply unit, the PSU.
Yes, the unsung hero.
Right. But here's my pushback. If I have a finite upgrade budget, say $600, why would I allocate a single dollar to a premium power supply when that money could buy me a higher tier of GPU?
I hear this all the time.
Right. I mean, a power supply doesn't render shadows. It doesn't give me frame.
It doesn't give you frames, no. But it guarantees you keep the ones you have.
Okay, fair.
A cheap power supply is the single biggest liability you can introduce into a custom build. Think about the physics of what the PSU actually does.
It provides power.
Right. But it takes the alternating current AC power coming from your wall outlet, which is inherently noisy and prone to voltage spikes, and has to rectify and filter that into pure, perfectly flat direct current or DC power.
And components like a modern GPU are incredibly sensitive to voltage fluctuations, I'd imagine.
Highly sensitive. We are talking about microprocessors operating on fractions of a volt. A bargain bin PSU usually lacks proper ripple suppression.
So it's sending uneven power.
Exactly. Instead of a flat delivery of power, it sends microscopic waves of fluctuating voltage into your motherboard and your GPU. Over time, that dirty power degrades the capacitors on those components.
Yikes.
But the real danger is transient spikes. Modern GPUs can demand massive instantaneous spikes in power during heavy rendering loads.
And if the cheap PSU can't handle that spike...
Best case scenario, the system's overcurrent protection triggers,
Yeah.
and your PC abruptly shuts down mid-game.
Which is annoying, but fine.
Right. But worst case scenario, the PSU's internal components fail, and it sends a fatal surge of AC voltage straight down the PCIe cables, literally permanently frying your $1,000 graphics card.
Oh, wow. Okay, that puts it in perspective.
Yeah, a quality high-wattage PSU from a reputable brand is the foundational insurance policy for the entire system.
So you aren't buying performance, you are buying a firewall against catastrophic failure.
Exactly.
And speaking of longevity, the guides also focus heavily on aftermarket cooling, moving away from the stock coolers that come in the box and investing in high-static pressure fans or liquid AIO loops.
Right, which loops right back to our conversation about thermal throttling.
Yeah, exactly.
The more powerful the components you buy, the more wattage they pull. And more wattage equals more thermal output.
Makes sense.
If you drop a top-tier CPU into a case with poor ventilation and a tiny stock cooler, you will literally never see the performance you paid for because it will instantly throttle.
Okay, so the hardware is pristine. We have clean power, massive airflow, raw processing muscle. But hardware is really just potential energy.
Right.
Your in-game settings dictate how that energy is spent. And I think a lot of people just drag the global slider to ultra and assume their new rig can handle it.
Oh, yeah. Which is incredibly inefficient. Yeah. Every frame generated in a game requires a complex rendering pipeline. You are forcing the GPU to calculate geometry, lighting, reflections, and post-processing in a matter of milliseconds.
So tuning is essential.
Yes. Tuning specific settings allows you to reclaim massive amounts of processing overhead without noticeably degrading the visual experience.
The sources highlight shadows and anti-aliasing as the primary culprits here.
Because of how they are calculated. Dynamic shadows require the engine to calculate the trajectory of every light source against every piece of geometry in the scene per frame.
That sounds exhausting for the computer.
It is. And anti-aliasing is the process of sampling the pixels on the edges of objects to smooth out the jagged stair-step look.
Right, to make it look realistic.
But if you were running at a high resolution, like 1440p or 4K, the pixel density is already so high that aggressive anti-aliasing is just redundant.
Ah, I see.
Dropping your shadow resolution from ultra to high and turning down the anti-aliasing multiplier can instantly claw back 20 to 30% of your frame rate.
But the most controversial setting in the guide, the one that sparks endless forum debates, is VSync, vertical synchronization.
Oh, the VSync dilemma. It is a fundamentally misunderstood technology.
Break it down for us.
Basically, VSync forces a hard synchronization between the game engine's frame output and the physical refresh rate of your monitor.
Okay.
So if your monitor refreshes 60 times a second, VSync tells the GPU to hold back any extra frames and only deliver exactly 60 per second, perfectly timed to the display cycle.
Which eliminates screen tearing, right? That ugly effect where you pan the camera quickly and the top half of the screen doesn't line up with the bottom half.
Right, because without it, the monitor is displaying two different frames at the same time.
Got it.
So VSync creates a visually flawless, smooth image, but it introduces a mechanical problem, which is input lag.
Why does it do that?
Because the GPU is literally holding rendered frames in a buffer, waiting for the monitor's next refresh cycle. So there is a physical delay between you clicking your mouse and that action being allowed to display on the screen.
I always think of VSync like a hyper-strict traffic cop at a busy intersection.
Oh, I like that.
The cop ensures every single car the frames moves in a perfectly ordered, evenly spaced line. There are absolutely no crashes, no screen tearing, but to maintain that perfect order, the cop has to hold you at a red light for a fraction of a second longer before you can hit the gas.
That's spot on. And for a competitive esports player, that fraction of a second is death.
Right, they need instant response.
They will gladly accept screen tearing if it means their mouse input registers instantly, so they leave VSync off.
But what about casual players?
For someone playing a visually dense single-player RPG, the latency doesn't matter as much. And the visual consistency of VSync is highly desirable. And look, if tweaking all this sounds exhausting, the guides rightly point out that utilizing the built-in hardware presets is a perfectly valid shortcut.
Well, finding that computational overhead by tweaking your settings is crucial because we're about to spend all of it.
Yes, we are.
This is where the guide pivots from purely playing a game to broadcasting it. The moment you hit the stream button, you are slamming your system with the streaming tax.
And this highlights why we just spent so much time talking about core upgrades and dialing in settings. Yes. Streaming is a brutal workload.
Because it's doing two things at once.
Exactly. You are demanding the PC execute two highly intensive, completely different tasks simultaneously.
You're running the 3D rendering pipeline for the game, and at the exact same time, you are running a video encoding pipeline.
Right. You are taking uncompressed, raw bitmap images from your game, scaling them, and using a codec, usually by 264 on the CPU or NVTEC on the GPU, to compress them down into a manageable data stream.
Like an H.264 stream.
Yes, that can be uploaded to the internet in real time. If your hardware is already maxed out just trying to run the game, the encoding process will drop frames, resulting in a stream that stutters or freezes completely.
The guides mention using broadcast software like OBS or Streamlabs. But they aren't just there to arrange your webcam and your gameplay capture, are they?
No, they function as real-time diagnostic HUDs. OBS gives you detailed readouts on encoding lag and rendering lag. It tells you exactly where the bottleneck is happening.
So it's like a dashboard warning light.
Exactly. If OBS says encoding overloaded, it means your processor cannot compress the video fast enough. This is where modern multi-core CPUs and specialized GPU encoders show their value.
Because they have dedicated pathways.
Yes, dedicated architectural pathways specifically engineered to handle video compression without stealing resources from the game's rendering pipeline.
This allows you to push higher stream settings. The guide talks about targeting 1080p resolution and dialing in your bitrate. Bitrate being the actual volume of data you are sending to the ingest server every second.
Bitrate is the lifeblood of stream quality.
Really? More than resolution.
Oh, absolutely. You can set your resolution to 1080p, but if your bitrate is too low, the encoder has to aggressively crush the image data to make it fit through the pipe. The moment you move your camera quickly in-game, the entire screen will turn into a blocky, pixelated mess.
I've definitely seen streams like that.
Right. Upgraded hardware gives you the horsepower to encode a high bitrate stream cleanly.
But okay, let me challenge that for a second.
Go for it.
I can have an RTX 4090, a top-tier CPU, and flawless OBS settings pushing an 8,000 kilobits per second bitrate. But if my rig is in a back bedroom running on a weak Wi-Fi signal from a router 2 floors down, does any of that hardware even matter?
Not even slightly. Your stream will be completely unwatchable.
Wow, really?
Yes. The Coconut published source material makes this very explicit. A hardwired Ethernet connection is non-negotiable for professional streaming.
But why is Wi-Fi so detrimental, specifically for live video? I mean, I can download huge game files over Wi-Fi just fine.
It's because of how the data is transmitted. When you download a file, you're using a protocol that checks for errors.
Yeah.
If a packet of data gets lost over the Wi-Fi due to interference, the server simply resends it. It takes a little longer, but the file arrives intact.
Right.
Live streaming uses a different protocol, usually based on UDP. It blasts the data out in real time and doesn't wait for confirmations. If a packet of video data gets dropped because your microwave turned on or a wall caused interference, that data is gone forever.
And on the viewer's end, that dropped packet looks like a massive visual artifact or the stream audio completely cutting out.
Exactly. Wi-Fi is fundamentally prone to packet loss and microfluctuations in speed. Hardwiring an Ethernet cable guarantees a stable, uninterrupted flow of data packets.
All right, so the rig is a powerhouse, thermals are under control, the encoder is dialed in, and we are hardwired to the router.
The technical foundation is rock solid.
Yes. So the final phase of the deep dive is where we step outside the PC case. It's about building the pro streamer ecosystem, the platform, and the peripheral gear.
Yeah, the choice of platform dictates the entire culture of your broadcast.
For sure.
The guide details 3 major players. Twitch is the undisputed juggernaut, built entirely around gaming culture and live, highly reactive chat engagement.
Right.
Then there is YouTube gaming, which leverages its massive existing video infrastructure.
The advantage there being discoverability, right? If you already make highly edited video on-demand content, the YouTube algorithm can easily funnel those viewers directly into your live streams.
Exactly. And intriguingly, the source material specifically highlights Mixer.
Which is fascinating because it gives us a snapshot of the technology they were prioritizing at the time. The guide mentions Mixer's focus on ultra-low latency.
Right. They utilized a proprietary FTL protocol that reduced the delay between the broadcaster and the viewer to sub-second levels.
That's incredibly fast.
It was. It allowed for incredibly tight interaction and features like co-streaming, where multiple creators could broadcast to the exact same viewer interface natively. It really emphasizes how platforms try to solve the technical latency gap to make the community feel closer.
Because ultimately, you are building toward monetization, subscriptions, donations, sponsorships. But to attract that, the broadcast has to look and sound premium.
Which is not cheap.
No, it requires dedicated peripheral gear to offload work from the PC and elevate the production value. The guide lists a few things, like capture cards.
Which are critical if you are a console streamer or if you run a dual PC setup.
How so?
Well, a capture card physically intercepts the uncompressed HDMI video signal from the console. And it handles the heavy lifting of converting it into a format OBS can recognize, completely bypassing the need for the PC's main processor to interpret that raw video feed.
Got it.
The guide also stresses a quiet microphone setup. And this is where I think a lot of beginners trip up.
Oh, absolutely.
They buy a highly sensitive condenser microphone, put it right next to their loud mechanical keyboard, and their viewers hear every single keystroke echoing off the bedroom walls.
It's terrible, which is why moving to a dynamic microphone, getting it on a boom arm close to your mouth, and dialing in noise gates in OBS is so vital. It isolates your voice and rejects the ambient room noise.
Add in proper lighting to eliminate harsh shadows on your face, a green screen to key out the messy bedroom behind you, and a closed-back headset so your game audio doesn't bleed back into the microphone.
It is a full studio production.
It really is. But all that gear is completely useless without the final element the guide covers, which is audience engagement.
The most important part.
I look at this entire process like opening a digital storefront.
Okay, I'm following. The game you are playing, the raw gameplay, that's just the product sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
The high frame rates, the flawless 1080p encoding, the clean lighting that just means you have a clean, well-lit store that looks professional from the street.
Right.
But the engagement, greeting new viewers by name as they walk in, using chatbots to keep the conversation flowing, building inside jokes with the regulars, that is the customer service.
It's the human element. The hardware gets them to click the thumbnail and walk in the door because the presentation is high quality. But the community engagement is the only reason they don't immediately walk back out.
Which brings us full circle. If we look at the entire roadmap the Coconut Published Guides laid out for us today, it's a masterclass in removing friction.
Yeah.
You start by literally removing the dust that chokes your thermals.
Yes.
You upgrade the CPU, the GPU, and protect it all with a premium power supply to guarantee clean, stable power.
Everything optimized.
Exactly. You tweak the in-game settings to reclaim rendering overhead, managing the VSync latency, and you take all that raw, optimized power and use it to drive a flawless video encoder, piping a high bitrate stream through a hardwired connection to your platform of choice.
It is a systematic process of eliminating technical bottlenecks until the only thing left between you and the audience is your pure gameplay and your personality.
And that actually brings up a lingering thought I want to leave you with, because we are rapidly approaching an era where this level of hardware power is commoditized.
That's true.
High-end encoding, perfect 1080p, or even 4K streaming, pristine audio, it's all becoming incredibly accessible. So when the technology ceiling is reached by everyone, when a flawless, stutter-free broadcast quality stream is no longer a premium feature, but just the baseline expectation for every single person who goes live, what is the true differentiator?
That's a great question.
Doesn't the burden of success shift completely away from the silicon in your PC and fall entirely back onto pure human charisma and your ability to build a genuine community?
I think so. Yeah. It forces the creator to be a creator, not just a technician. The technology builds the stage, but you still have to put on a show worth watching.
Something to chew on the next time you are staring at your rig, listening to the fan spin up, and waiting to hit that go live button. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Catch you on the next one.
That's it for today's Meet Sean. If this helped, follow the show and share this episode with one person who needs it. See you next time.